Hello, everyone. I am Anna, and alongside me is Arjun, Emily, and Mohamed. Together, we are the housing heroes who are building the way home for people experiencing homelessness. First, we will tell you our story. It is estimated that 235,000 Canadians experience homelessness each year. According to Perceni, poverty, interpersonal conflict, mental and physical health problems, loss of housing, addictions, deinstitutionalization, and social safety net failure are several different pathways that lead to homelessness in Canada. This is a significant number, and each individual has their own story. These are some of the faces of the individuals who are experiencing homelessness today. The top left picture is of Darren. Darren began using alcohol at age 17 due to not being able to cope well with things when he was younger because his parents split. He has been homeless on and off for almost 15 years and has struggled with an alcohol addiction since his teens. As a result, he accumulated around $15,000 in fines. The bottom right picture is of Danielle. Danielle claims that a combination of mental health issues and an abusive boyfriend at the age of 17 led her to homelessness. She has given birth to 3 children out of multiple abusive relationships. These are just 2 stories from the 235,000 Canadians experiencing homelessness today. Something needs to be done. Our UNRISD question that we based our project on was, how can the rights of marginal and vulnerable groups be protected and enhanced in the process of large-scale infrastructure development? This question is from the Governance, Participation, and Rights section of the UNRISD. This section is about governance creating laws, norms, and power at formal and informal levels. Governance is connected to the protection of rights and political participation, or the failure to do so and the creation of inequality. This section is crucial for identifying inclusive development strategies. Our innovation project links to the UNRISD goals of no poverty, industry, innovation, and infrastructure, reduced inequalities, and sustainable cities and communities.
So our vision is to ultimately eliminate homelessness by improving access to affordable housing and permanent accommodation, specifically by reducing the upfront cost for housing first initiatives. Housing First is an increasingly widespread and influential response to chronic homelessness. It is a recovery-oriented approach to ending it that centers on quickly moving people on the streets into independent and permanent housing and then providing additional supports and services as needed, like mental health or addiction-related services. Housing First is now a recognized best practice in Canada due to its effectiveness at reducing homelessness. It takes the approach that what people need first is secure permanent housing to be able to focus on other aspects of their lives. Studies have shown that Housing First can effectively reduce chronic and episodic homelessness while simultaneously reducing the utilization of publicly funded services, like shelters and other emergency medical services, ultimately saving costs. Specifically, when looking at a few papers, the days of stable housing were higher by 140 days in the Housing First group compared to other public services. The intervention cost has been reduced by around 46%, going from $14,000 to around $7,800. At $67 per day of stable housing, there's an 80% chance that Housing First has cost-effective compared to treatment as usual. For individuals utilizing Housing First, it is also shown to decrease substance use and addiction-related problems, has improved residents' connection to service providers, and has increased the sense of stability and sense of community for those who are in the program. Housing First, when looking at the long-term effects, significantly offsets costs, and combined with their benefits for participant, means that HF represents a more efficient allocation of resources. The model does, however, have some limitations and challenges. A major issue is the large upfront costs for developing affordable housing and its lack of funding because of this. Most current programs using an HF approach typically rely on market apartments to house homeless clients as rapidly as possible. This reliance means HF programs are dependent on the availability and affordability of market housing. Little attention has been given to how shortages of affordable rental housing influence the practice of HF. So what we need is a way to reduce upfront costs, and by doing so, we can make rent cheaper and housing more affordable. One way we can do this is by, instead of renting in the market as is currently done, or building brand new housing first projects, we can simply repurpose vacant and abandoned buildings into affordable social housing.
Now we're going to give you an overview of the process that we took to get us up to this point. This includes the inputs, outputs, and desired outcomes of this project, and any external factors that may affect its ability to reach the desired outcomes. For this project to be successful, we have identified the following inputs that are required. We will need enough funding to cover upfront costs of converting properties into housing units, properties themselves, building materials, support from community members, both those who are housed and those who are currently homeless, support of the municipal government, support of non-governmental organizations who have experience in our target population. By investing the previously mentioned inputs into our project, we will be able to successfully repurpose abandoned buildings into affordable housing units, as noted in the activities section of this slide. As well as this, we will be able to engage the participation of many stakeholders, including suppliers for building materials, contractors and contracting companies to help with the conversion into housing units, NGOs who can provide some input on the project as well as help promote the project in the local community, fundraisers and fundraising agencies who are important to raise enough funding for the project to be successful, especially since it has relatively high upfront costs, banks and building proprietors to supply or donate unused buildings and spaces, municipal government to provide insight and approve the project, and community members, those who are both homeless and those with housing, to provide their input on the project and to help promote it in the community. It is through these outputs that we see our project leading up to 3 different outcomes: a short-term, medium-term, and a long-term outcome. The short-term outcome that we are working toward is providing an increased number of affordable housing options to homeless people in Edmonton. Achieving the short-term outcome will eventually lead to the medium-term outcome, which is an increased number of individuals with access to housing first. Through these 2 outcomes, our project is working towards reducing levels of homelessness in the Edmonton area.
However, the progress of this project may be limited by external factors that are out of our control. As Arjun and Emily mentioned, it requires a big upfront investment that needs involvement from many stakeholders. The price of properties, a number of properties available in Edmonton, and ultimately the amount of funding available for the project is out of our control. Now onto the positive impact we want to have. We will evaluate our project with increases in many variables. Among those are the number of individuals able to be accommodated, funding from stakeholders, or just the number of abandoned properties being converted into low-income housing. We want to build safer communities. It is a fact that homeless people are at a higher risk of experiencing violence than most people. Housing First allows them to be protected by distancing them from unsafe environments and fulfilling their physiological needs. Our innovation idea is economically more sustainable than short-term shelters. It is true that it has great upfront costs, but it will help reinsert a portion of the population in the economy and will reduce the cost of social welfare, as the previously homeless population will be more independent when reinserted into society. Finally, it will help human beings like Darren and Daniel live in a dignified way by providing permanent housing. If anything, the current health crisis has made us realize we are more resilient than we thought, and we have enough resources to implement this idea. As Jonathan Kozol said, the cause of homelessness is lack of housing. This might sound like a joke at first, but it is true. Our plan provides housing, and we want you to think about what not helping these people who need help and not pity says about us as a society when we are effectively able to help them. Thank you.